There was an experiment in 2011, not widely publicized, conducted by researchers studying female mate selection and evolutionary psychology, building on Robert Greene's observations about power and seduction. They recruited 120 women, ages 22 to 34, diverse backgrounds, education levels, relationship statuses. The researchers showed them profiles of men. Each profile contained a photo, a biography, and a series of behavioral scenarios. The women were asked to rate which men they found most attractive for short-term dating and long-term relationships. The results were statistically clear and psychologically devastating. The men rated most attractive for short-term encounters displayed higher levels of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and risk-taking behavior. The men rated most attractive for long-term relationships displayed stability, empathy, and reliability. But here's the cruel part. When asked to predict their own choices, 73% of women said they would choose the stable, empathetic man. When observed in real-world follow-up scenarios, 68% pursued the narcissistic, risk-taking man. They knew intellectually what was good for them, but they were attracted to something else entirely. The question is why? And the answer reveals something most men have completely misunderstood about female attraction. Daniel was 29 when he realized he'd been playing the wrong game his entire life. He was everything women said they wanted. Stable job as a software engineer, emotionally available, respectful, listened actively, never played games. He'd been on 40 first dates in 2 years. Exactly 3 second dates, 0 relationships. He wasn't ugly. He wasn't boring. He was just invisible. Meanwhile, his roommate Jake, who worked part-time at a bar, changed emotional availability like most people change socks, and treated dating like a sport. Had women constantly pursuing him, Daniel watched it happen with confusion that eventually turned into resentment. "What am I doing wrong?" he finally asked Jake one night. Jake shrugged. "You're doing everything right." That's the problem. Daniel didn't understand. He'd spent years reading relationship advice. Be yourself, show genuine interest, respect boundaries, communicate clearly. He did all of it, and it got him nowhere. Jake did none of it, and women lined up. The cognitive dissonance was maddening. So Daniel did what engineers do. He researched. He found studies on evolutionary psychology, David Buss, Jeffrey Miller, Robert Greene's work on the art of seduction, and slowly, uncomfortably, he started to understand. Female attraction isn't a logical process. It's an evolutionary one. And evolution doesn't care about fairness. It cares about survival. Here's what the research shows. For 200,000 years of human evolution, women faced a survival problem men didn't. Pregnancy, 9 months of physical vulnerability, years of childcare. In ancestral environments, choosing the wrong mate didn't just mean heartbreak. It meant death, starvation, abandonment with a child and no resources. So female psychology evolved a sophisticated, deeply unconscious screening system, not for the nicest man, for the man most likely to provide genetic fitness and protection. And the traits that signaled those things in ancestral environments are not the traits we consciously value in modern society. Robert Greene writes about this extensively. Seduction, he argues, is not about morality. It's about psychology. It's about understanding the unconscious triggers that create attraction and using them strategically. And the most powerful trigger isn't kindness. It's tension, the perception of challenge, the feeling that this man has options, has power, and choosing him means winning something valuable. Nice guys fail, not because women don't value kindness. They fail because they signal no challenge. They're too available, too eager, too predictable. And predictability, in evolutionary terms, signals low mate value. Daniel tested this reluctantly. He stopped texting back immediately. He stopped being overly accommodating. He started saying no to plans that didn't interest him. He stopped trying to prove he was worth dating and started acting like he already knew. The change in responses was immediate and uncomfortable. Women who had previously been polite but uninterested started pursuing, asking when he was free, suggesting plans. staying engaged in conversations. Daniel felt disgusted and fascinated in equal measure. Nothing about him had changed except his behavior. And that behavior was less respectful, less considerate, less kind. And it worked. But here's where the experiment gets cruel. Daniel started dating someone. Her name was Sophie, 27, graphic designer, smart, funny, self-aware. They'd matched on an app. He used his new approach. Took 3 days to respond to her first message. Suggested a date on his terms. Showed interest but not investment. She was hooked. They dated for 3 months. And slowly, Daniel relaxed. He started being himself again. Texting back quickly. Being accommodating him. Showing how much he cared. Sophie's interest faded proportionally. She became distant. Canceled plans. Eventually, she ended it. "I just don't feel the spark anymore." Daniel asked what changed it. She couldn't articulate it. "You're a great guy. I just don't feel what I felt at the beginning." Daniel knew exactly what had changed. He'd stopped creating tension. He'd become safe. And safety, despite being what Sophie said she wanted, killed her attraction. He felt trapped. Be the strategic, slightly unavailable version of himself and maintain attraction, but feel like a fraud. Or be his authentic, caring self and be alone. It felt like a choice between integrity and effectiveness. And the research suggested this wasn't unique to Sophie. It was a feature of female psychology. David Buss's research on mate preferences shows this pattern repeatedly. Women report wanting kindness, stability, emotional availability, but they demonstrate attraction to confidence, social dominance, and a degree of unpredictability. The disconnect isn't dishonesty, it's dual mating strategy. On a conscious level, women want the partner who will be a good father, a stable provider, emotionally present. On an unconscious level, they're attracted to the genetic fitness indicators that suggest strong offspring, high testosterone, social status, pre-selection by other women, willingness to take risks. The men who succeed aren't necessarily the ones who are objectively better partners. They're the ones who trigger the unconscious attraction mechanisms while providing enough stability to avoid being categorized as purely short-term. It's a balance. Too nice, too stable, and you're friend-zoned or second choice. Too risky, too unpredictable, and you're exciting, but not relationship material. The sweet spot is what Greene calls the rake with a conscience. Dangerous enough to be exciting, safe enough to be viable. Daniel didn't want to be a rake. He wanted to be genuine, but he also didn't want to be alone. So he found a mentor, not a pep artist, a psychologist named Dr. Adrian Cole, who specialized in evolutionary psychology and ethical attraction. "The question you're asking," Dr. Cole said, "is whether you can be authentic and attractive. And the answer is yes. But first, you have to understand what authenticity actually means." Daniel was confused. Being myself. Which self? The self that's been socialized to be non-threatening and overly accommodating? Or the self that has boundaries, standards, and doesn't need external validation? Dr. Cole explained that most men confuse niceness with authenticity. They suppress their own needs, preferences, and standards to avoid conflict or rejection. They think this makes them kind, but it actually makes them formless. Women aren't attracted to formlessness. They're attracted to presence, to a man who knows who he is and doesn't apologize for it. That's not the same as being an asshole. It's being grounded. He gave Daniel an exercise. For the next 2 weeks, every time you're about to do something to please someone else at your own expense, stop. Ask yourself, is this what I actually want to do? If the answer is no, don't do it. It was harder than Daniel expected. Saying no to plans he didn't want to attend. Not responding to texts immediately just because his phone was in his hand. Choosing restaurants he liked instead of asking, "What do you prefer?" Every time. It felt selfish, but Dr. Cole reframed it. It's not selfish to have preferences. It's honest. And honesty is more attractive than compliance. Daniel started dating again. This time, he wasn't performing. He wasn't strategizing. He was just clear. Clear about what he wanted. Clear about his boundaries. Clear about his interest without being desperate for approval. The results were different. He met Emma at a bookstore. They talked for 20 minutes. She gave him her number. He texted 2 days later. Not as a strategy. Because he was busy and didn't think about it until then. They went to dinner. He suggested the place. A restaurant he liked. Didn't ask where she wanted to go. Not because he didn't care about her preference, but because he was leading. She could say no if she didn't like it. She didn't. At dinner, she asked about his work. He answered honestly but didn't elaborate unless she asked follow-ups. He asked about hers. Listened. Didn't try to fix her problems or prove he was supportive. Just listened. When she mentioned she was stressed about a project, he didn't offer to help. He said, "That sounds challenging. You'll figure it out." Not dismissive, confident in her capability. The dynamic was different from anything Daniel had experienced. There was space. He wasn't filling every silence. He wasn't trying to prove anything. And Emma leaned in, asked more questions, laughed more, touched his arm when she made a point. At the end of the night, she said, "I had a great time." Daniel said, "Me too." He didn't ask when they could meet again. He just said, I'll text you." 3 days later, he did. They went out again, then again. After a month, Emma said, "You're different from guys I usually date." "How?" "You don't need me to like you. It makes me want to." "Want?" 6 months later, they were in a relationship. Daniel was himself. Not the overly accommodating version. Not the strategic player version. The version that had boundaries, preferences, and didn't need validation. And Emma was more attracted, more invested, more present than any woman he dated. Dr. Cole explained why. You're not triggering her attraction by being manipulative. You're triggering it by being grounded. Groundedness signals high mate value. It says, I have options. I choose you. But the first don't need you. And that paradox, choosing without needing, is the foundation of sustainable attraction. But Daniel wanted to understand the larger pattern. Why did this work? Dr. Cole walked him through the research. In ancestral environments, men who were too eager signaled low status. If you're desperate for any woman, it means other women haven't chosen you. That's a red flag in evolutionary terms. Conversely, if you're selective, it signals you've been selected. Pre-selection. Women are attracted to men other women want because it's social proof of genetic quality. So it's all just biology. There's no free will? No. Biology creates the baseline attraction triggers on attraction triggers. But you have choice in how you show up. You can be desperate and accommodating, which triggers nothing. You can be manipulative and fake scarcity, which works short-term but creates toxicity. Or you can be genuinely grounded, which triggers attraction and builds respect. Daniel realized the answer wasn't to become a bad boy. It was to stop being a nice guy in the way that term had been distorted. Nice guys aren't actually nice. They're conflict-averse. They're approval-seeking. They lack boundaries. Genuinely good men are kind, but they're also strong. They're empathetic, but they're also grounded. They care about others, but they don't lose themselves in the process. That's what women are actually attracted to. Not cruelty, not narcissism, but presence, strength. The confidence to lead without dominating. The ability to care without becoming servile. A year into their relationship, Emma asked Daniel, "Why do you think we work?" He thought about it. "Because the first, I'm not trying to be what you want. I'm just being who I am. And you're doing the same." She nodded. "Every guy I dated before you was either trying too hard or didn't try at all. You're just here, present. It's the most attractive thing I've ever experienced." Daniel thought about the research, the experiment, the cruel truth that women are attracted to traits that don't align with what they consciously say they want. But he realized it wasn't cruel. It was just complex. Women aren't attracted to bad men because they're bad. They're attracted to the confidence, the groundedness, the lack of neediness that bad men often display. The tragedy is that good men can have those same traits. They just have to stop hiding them under layers of people-pleasing. Now let me ask you something. You've watched this far. Maybe you recognize yourself in Daniel's story. Maybe you've been the nice guy who finishes last. Maybe you've been confused by the gap between what women say they want and what they respond to. Here's the truth. The game isn't rigged. But the rules aren't what you were taught. Attraction isn't about being the nicest, the most accommodating, the most available. It's about being grounded, having standards, leading without apologizing, caring without losing yourself. You don't have to become a bad boy. You have to stop being a formless nice guy. Start with one thing. Set one boundary you've been avoiding because you're afraid of conflict. Say no to one thing you don't want to do. Stop texting back immediately like you're waiting by the phone, not as a game, but because you have a life and you're living it. Notice what changes, not just in how women respond, in how you feel about yourself, because the real shift isn't about attracting women. It's about respecting yourself enough to stop performing for approval. Robert Greene's work isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding human nature and working with it instead of against it. Women are attracted to power, confidence, and presence because those traits signaled survival for 200,000 years. You can reject that and stay frustrated, or you can embody those traits in a way that's authentic and ethical. The choice is yours, but pretending biology doesn't exist won't make you more attractive. It'll just make you more confused. Comment below one boundary you're going to set this week. One thing you're going to stop doing to please others at your own expense. Because that's the first step to becoming the kind of man women are actually attracted to. Not because you're playing games, but because you've stopped playing them.